Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to have you here with us in London. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you.
Maybe you could kick off with a brief introduction to A Different Man. I mean, not an easy one to define.
No.
Genre bending, mind bending, a satire, a parable. How would you go about describing the film?
I say it is a psychological thriller slash black comedy about a man who undergoes a medical procedure only to become obsessed by another actor who's in a play about his former life.
And of course, it's not your first collaboration with Aaron. I know you worked on Chained for Life together,
Yeah.
and indeed he wrote the role with you in mind. So what's been so fruitful about that collaboration between the two of you, and how did you work together on crafting the story and the characters?
So yeah, we met back in 2016 on Chained for Life, and again, great film. And sent me the script. I liked it, and also when you start working with someone, he's just a joy to work with. So I already had a great deal of respect and admiration for him as a writer-director. And then we did the circuit, we changed, and we've been talking in the interim. So I'd gotten to really just know him and love him as another bloke and a mate. And so after Change did the circuit, and he said, would you work with me again? I had no problem with saying, yep, cool, ding ding, let's go for round two. And then I didn't know at the time he'd written the whole character and the whole film around me. I didn't know that until quite late on in the game. And I had no input into the script either. I think you should let writers and directors go away and write and direct. I didn't want this to be a what is a very good script tainted by 1,000 dumb opinions and suffer from almost like death by studio, which happens a lot now. And then he sent me the script, I read it, I loved it. I was like, yep, we're doing Kaufman, amazing. And I think my only feedback was, so I need to learn to yodel and sing, which you can do on the job, right? They can edit that in. And yeah, it was great to get the old band back together. And then you find out you're working with Sebastian Stan and Renata Rinze. And you're like, okay, cool. You got to learn how to do your job well then. Like, nowhere to hide now.
And what was it like working with those two actors, particularly Sebastian, who just seems to have really taken the role on with, by both horns?
Oh, such gusto. I have the utmost respect for how much kind of time, effort and dedication he put in. And I always think if you want to learn to do something well in the arts, be it acting, singing, other forms of musicianship, you find people who already do it to like a level where you want to be. And just sit under the learning tree, get in their way, ask questions, sort of like pester them like a little bit, and you do a lot of learning on the job via osmosis. So I was very fortunate where on this one and all the things I've worked on, I've worked with people who do it really well, who've been very like kind and patient with me to get me up to that level. And I think on this one I've finally shaken off that sort of imposter syndrome, where I'm now happy to call myself an actor.
And what I think is really striking about the film is its tone and the fact that it's constantly kind of defying audience expectations. Like maybe when you think it's going to be one kind of film, there's a quick twist and turn into something else, particularly the sort of the dark comedy aspects of it, particularly the way it sort of leans into these ideas of discomfort that people might have. So what was that like bringing that to life on set, and why was that so crucial to the film?
I think the elements of dark comedy are really important. I think it gives it like a little bit of levity, because you can only make people feel uncomfortable for so long before you need to almost give them permission to breathe, like a little bit. And the way it sort of like subverts expectation, and it's always sort of like a good few minutes ahead of the audience in what it's about to do. So like you don't sort of sit there and think, oh, I'm watching this, and then something will happen, and I'll be like, oh, and then that little voice in the back of your head, why did I think that? And what I really appreciate about the script and the film and the way it's all been executed is it holds up mirrors rather than placards. And it would have been very easy to make this a little bit more shouty and a bit more kind of finger pointy and tell the audience what to think. And I don't want to change what people think, because that will maybe last a day, like max. Good cinema changes what people think. Great cinema changes how people think. And A Different Man is in the great cinema business.
And to what extent do you see it as a way, as sort of having a bit of commentary on the industry itself, you know, sort of passing that torch, you know, from non-actors playing the, you know, parts of people with disabilities to people playing whoever they want, whether that's a villain, a hero, you know, or not getting typecast or not getting boxed into certain labels.
Yeah. In Chain for Life, some of the criticism was that simply casting me in it was exploitative, which is a thing I really don't get. I find the exploitation argument a bit infantilizing, because it means that I've somehow been hoodwinked and wasn't in control of my own decision making. Yet equally, if you cast a non-disabled actor, that isn't what we classically think of as representation in 2024. And to anyone's mind, cool, then let's have that conversation and do both and let them like go to war, like a little bit in this film. And also what I like is both characters are just in the film. There's no sort of like backstory or epilogue or, because the three big tropes of victimhood, villainy and false heroism, and we just push those to one side right away from the word go. And again, let the audience sort of make up their own mind as to who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And with regards to typecasting, I don't know what the key word in typecasting is cast. And I think we need to get more disabled people and more disabled actors in roles first. I think that's a very good first step. But then playing anything, you know, I don't want a blanket ban on disfigured bad guys because they're quite fun to play, and I've got a mortgage. But equally, we need like a more well-rounded look at sort of like disabled people in films, like, where they can just turn up and their disability isn't their raison d'etre or like a lazy shorthand for their mere existence in narrative storytelling and this industry. And if this film can even play a small part in sort of like passing that torch and kick-starting that conversation, then I'll consider it a very fortunate byproduct of a very good film.
And I do love the fact that it can work on so many different levels. You know, it can be starting that discussion about people with disabilities, how they're cast in films, how people might treat them in everyday life. But it's also a more universal concept about how, you know, image obsessed we are now as a culture, how we do confront our own identities and how we might put that in the hands of other people to define. So do you think for a modern day audience, there's lots of things to take?
Well, the idea of who we are on the outside, who we are on the inside. And there's this great Jim Carrey quote that I hope I don't butcher, but it's something along the lines of, I wish everyone can get all their hopes and dreams, and that way they realise it won't be enough. And we're forever, we all carry our little low self-esteem machines in our pocket, and we all doom scroll and compare our behind the scenes to other people's greatest hits. And I just wish we could all get over ourselves and just start talking honestly as to who we are and how we're feeling. Like, whenever I see my friends, I'm like, oh, how are you? And then they'll do the very British thing of being like, oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, oh, sorry, I phrased the question wrong. How are you really? And then that can be like them going, oh, I'm actually not that good today. And I want to create a landscape where we all know it's okay not to be okay. Everyone's like different and jacked up, right? So let's all be different and jacked up together.
And have you seen the impact of the film so far? I know it was screened in Berlin, it's been on the film festival circuit, what's now landing here?
I think the biggest compliment for me, we did a screening in New York, and we had people from visibly different community there, from various different charities. And afterwards, they just came up and said, thank you. I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel represented for the first time in my life. And for me, that's the biggest compliment I can get.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and I can't wait for everyone else to have a chance to see A Different Man. Huge congratulations on the film. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.